So this pattern is called Falling. It's by Running Doe Quilts by Rosa. And I thought I would share how I make this pattern with you guys. I have a lot of these cards, so I'm excited to sew some of these cards and kind of go through these patterns a little bit. I know I've said that a lot, but I do have a lot of patterns. I kind of feel like it's easy to collect patterns. And so I am excited to start sewing through some of these. And I'm going to be making this just in time for fall. So here we go. So I have everything cut out, and I even cut my binding, pieced my binding, and pressed it, and it's all ready to go. So this is going to be my background fabric. These are going to be all of my leaves, stems, and then, yeah, background. So background, leaves, stems, and binding. So I wanted my binding to match my background fabric so that it's like a seamless quilt. It doesn't have like, it won't be framed, I guess, because I feel like if you do a different color binding, it kind of frames your quilt. Anyhow, so this is what I have so far, and I'm going to start sewing and I will share my progress. But before I get started, I did want to say that I'm just trying to sew my way through these card patterns. I feel like they're so tempting to buy because they're like $2 for this pattern. And I have several of them and I want to sew them because I love the pattern so much. So I am on a mission to sew several of these pattern cards up. So I just took a few minutes to mark diagonal lines on the back of these because my seam tape with my extension table won't allow me to sew this completely on the diagonal to eyeball it. So I thought it would be best to mark the line. So the pattern says to mark the line and then sew 1/4 inch on each side. And then I'll be cutting these in half on the line. And I have to do it with this stack. And then I also have to do it with this stack. So these will be the leaf part. And then these ones, these are the stems here, but these blocks right here were cut in half on the diagonal, and this will actually become the block that this stem goes in. So I'll sew those together like that. So I kind of jumped ahead and I cut those so I can sew them together with these stems here. So I have that in a pile, and then I have this set here in a pile and this set. So I'm just going to go to the sewing machine. So I'm curious on these. I didn't read ahead on the pattern, but I can't remember if I have to square up all of these half square triangles. So that will be interesting to see if I have to do that, because this will be a lot of squaring. But at the same time, it will probably be good because it will make the quilt look a lot nicer, having everything squared. But when I was trying to look at that stitching, but when I was counting all of these, I'm like, oh boy, that's gonna be, I think I'm going, let's see on the pattern here. Yeah, I will end up with a total of 48 half square triangles. So, and that's just on this part, this step. So they're going to be leaves. It says you will have, yeah, 48 for the leaves. So let's see if I have to square them up. I have everything all trimmed up, and now I just need to press everything with an iron and go from there. The only thing that said on the pattern to square up was these stems of the leaves, but you can see I got a lot of trimming, so I did trim everything. So I am just on my living room floor and I am trying to organize these piles, these leaves. And so on this pattern, as I look at it, and it does say on the back as well, it says for every, when you put the center of the leaf there, like the half square triangle, then you need Let me see if I'm explaining this right. Okay, so you have this half square triangle unit here. So that tells you those are the 2 color fabrics you're going to use in the entire block. Plus every block needs a stem and also a background fabric. So there are 12 leaves. So I have my 12 piles here. And so what I did is I placed a background fabric with each one. And then, for example, on this one, it will need 1 solid of the purple and 1 solid of the red. So there's the purple, there's the red, and then it needs 2 half square triangles of each of these colors. So I'll go to my pile of half square triangles right here, and I'm going to pull out these 2 colors. So let's see here. They were all facing one way. I don't know what happened. Okay, so 2 purple and 2 reds. Let's see what we have here. And I do have some different prints of the reds, so I gotta make sure and get the right ones. Okay, so then I will need 2 of those, and then purple. And I'm just kind of being sloppy here. I'll fix this in a minute. And 2 purples. Okay, so let me set this aside. So on here, you have your center unit, your background square, and then 2 half square triangles to match that purple, a solid to match the purple, and then 2 half square triangles to match this, or this red here, and then a solid square, or I'm calling it a solid because it's not a half square triangle. So a solid square to match that. So let me put this block together and show you how it comes together. So this is my block placement for this block. So it also needs a stem, 1 stem block. So I am going to lay all these out. Again, I'm going to sort them into piles like this, so then I can just grab it and lay the block out. And then I'm going to take all the stacks, there's 12 leaves, and then I'll place them on my floor like this, so that I can make sure I have the layout correctly. I finished assembling all my leaf blocks, and I laid out my quilt top, and now I just need to sew the quilt top together. I just finished my quilt top. This pattern is called Falling by Running Doe Quilts, and it's one of those Villa Rosa pattern cards. So I will share that with you in just a minute, but I think this turned out so cute. So this is the quilt top, and I have the binding made. The binding will be the same fabric as this background fabric right there. And I don't have a backing yet, so I need to go pick out a backing. So here's the binding fabric all made. I just need to pick out a backing, but I'm happy that my binding's made. It's the same as my background fabric on this quilt, so that will be nice. And then here is that pattern card. Let me see if I can show you a little better. So it was a super easy pattern to follow. I feel like in here, you had to match up all these squares. So there were lots of squares, like square point there, square point there. So a lot of pinning. I did a lot of pinning, but it was a fairly simple pattern to follow. And this quilt, so it's just a quilt top now. I need to quilt it all up, but this quilt will finish at 54 by 72. So not too bad. Super excited to have this one off my list. And these pattern cards, I have a lot of them. So I'm super excited to have made one more of these patterns off of these pattern cards. So one more thing, I just wanted to point out, look, I get to empty out one more pattern bag, or not a pattern bag. Oh my gosh, I can't think of all these words. Another project bag. But I did want to say, I'm not sure how much extra on every fat quarter. So this pattern calls for 12 fat quarters for the leaves, 1 3/4 yard for the background, and 1/8 of a yard for stems. So, the 12 fat quarters. I just wanted to show, in case you want to make this pattern, so let me show it right there. In Okay, so you want to make this pattern. I have a good amount of fabric left over. So these are the leftover fat quarters. On my background fabric, I do have a little bit left over, but honestly, I'm not sure how much I started with. I might have started with 2 yards rather than what the pattern called for, which was 1 3/4, 1 3/4 yard. So disregard the background fabric. I don't know how much you have left, but I just want to point out here that there is, I'm not sure why I have these separated, but let's see. So the way I cut these, like here's a strip that's left over of this fat quarter, okay? And then I also have this section here left over. So I just wanted to point out that, hey, there is a significant amount of fabric left over. So that's good. And I kind of like to know, because sometimes on patterns, sometimes you barely have enough to get by, but there is a little bit left over. I'm not sure what I'll do with these. I might cut these into squares. I considered cutting them into like 2.5-inch squares and then setting them aside. I have a bag, a gallon Ziploc bag full of 2.5-inch squares that I might do something with someday, but I'm not sure if I should do that or if I should like measure and see how much is left here and then maybe cut those into squares to make something. I'm not sure yet. I guess if this was 5 inches, that would be nice. I could just cut it right down the middle and cut 2.5-inch squares. But nonetheless, this pattern calls for 12 fat quarters for these leaves. And this is what I have left from those fat quarters. So I wanted to share that with you so you know there will be leftover fabric if you decide to make this pattern. And 1 empty project bag. So yay, it's exciting. It's always nice to have these empty bags. And then I always think, okay, what else should I start now? Because I have an empty project bag. But I'm not in a hurry to start anything else. I just want to be happy with my progress on this and now find a backing fabric for this quilt so I can quilt this quilt up. Since the binding's made, I just need that backing fabric. Thanks for watching. See you next time.